Hi, welcome to Empower Together. I am your host, Desiree Parker, and I am super excited to have today Curt Sassak. Curt is a former award-winning chef of 27 years. Like so many of us, his identity and his passion was just wrapped up in that career until one day he decided that it just wasn't serving his purpose anymore. It wasn't what he wanted to be doing anymore. So at 41, he walked away with no idea what he wanted to do. Moved to a new city, and I'm going to let him take it from there and tell his story. So welcome, Curt. I'm so happy to have Curt. I'm so happy to have you here today. Absolutely. Sure. Mhm. Yeah.
It took some
Hmm.
venturing into the unknown because they're familiar with it. So the current
Yes.
reality that sucks is okay because they're familiar with it. But the unknown reality that could suck is more scary or could be better, right? But they can't see that. So
Yes.
that's one of the things that held me back. But then once I made that first step into the unknown, I learned A, those fears are a lot bigger in my head than in reality. And B, I wish I would have taken the step sooner. So I was a bit pissed off at myself for like, shit, why didn't I do this before? Right. But you don't learn
Yes.
that until you actually take that step. And,
Hmm.
even the most successful executives, high achievers, I don't care how smart you are, how successful you are, walking away from something, there's this fear that you have to start over at the beginning somewhere,
Hmm.
or you get all these fears that go through your head. Most of them are unfounded. But what I've learned is when it comes to making a big change in life, whether it be, changing careers, leaving a marriage, or some other life situation, we typically don't plan on that. So we're not prepared. So we don't know what to do. Like in
Hmm.
my case, I took a job as a server in a pizza place for like for several years because I didn't know what I know now. I didn't know how to leverage my skills to my advantage.
Hmm.
And so I went about everything the hard way, and it
Yeah.
cost me about $250,000 over 4 years because
Ooh.
I just took jobs just to pay the bills because I didn't know what else I could do. I didn't know how to identify my
Yeah.
transferable skills. I let fear beat me down and blah blah blah. So
Hmm.
when I calculated it, I thought about the jobs I could have had, knowing what I know now,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that are more in line with my skills and experience. And I thought, wow,
Yes.
I cost myself about 250 grand. Not to mention I was unhealthy. I gained about 50 pounds. I was drinking excessively. And then there's the
Yeah.
cost on my mental health.
Of
Because the
course.
thing people don't think about when they're stuck in some miasma or, some crappy situation, whether it be a job or marriage or whatever, they don't
Hmm.
think about the costs.
Yes.
They don't think about what's it costing you in career opportunities. Like it cost me 250
Yeah.
grand. What's it costing you your mental health? What's it costing your relationships? Because,
Yes.
like in my case, I lost my sense of purpose, my why.
Hmm.
And when you lose your sense of purpose, it affects other areas of your life. It'll affect your relationship.
Absolutely.
And then it's not uncommon for people to resort to external things like, drugs, alcohol, sex, spending, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
And that was what I did. drank a lot because I'm like, okay, well, it sounds like a good idea. I don't know what I want, and which that also created its own set of challenges that I had to deal with.
Of
So,
course.
um,
Of course.
at any rate, the good thing about that experience is, as painful as it was and as uncomfortable, and while it did cost me a lot, it actually led me to what I'm doing now, which is coaching people to rediscover their purpose and help them navigate through what I call the pit stop of life. That point where you're
Hmm.
kind of at a crossroads in your life, and you're like, wow. Because in my case, I got to the top of the career mountain. I achieved all my goals
Yeah.
by my late 30s. I mean, I had the six-figure salary, I had the status, the title, the
Hmm.
recognition, uh, won many awards, did live television, lived and worked in 7 countries, and I achieved every goal by my late 30s. And then one day I was sitting in my office and like, shit, is this it?
Yeah.
It's like what's
Where do I
next?
go?
Yeah,
Yeah.
'cause I just like, and then I felt like a dick because I was like, well, why do I? Because I felt guilty because I'm like, wow, I got everything I wanted. Why
Sure.
am I not happy?
Yeah.
You know?
Then you feel like a jerk for not being grateful.
Yeah. So I was, the classic case of the dog who caught the car.
Hmm.
And so that, little did I know, what turned out to be the most difficult period of my life would lead me to be coaching others to get through, again, to help them rediscover their purpose and kind of get back to their old self. Because prior to that, I felt like I was on top of the world. I was confident.
Yeah.
I was knocking out the goals. I would wake up, energized, felt great about life. And then for that period of 4 years, I was just an empty shell.
Yeah.
So, now I coach people how to get back their confidence, how to rediscover their purpose and their why so they can navigate
Hmm.
and find some new direction and get, happiness and fulfillment.
That's awesome. And I think that's a great uh, space to be in, because I think more people than not end up at some kind of crossroads like that. Um, I think it sounds like, oh, that's not not everybody's going to hit that, but really, I think more people than we think go through something like that. They go through that point where either they realize they're not living in the purpose that they want to be, that they're meant to be, or that they think they were, or they go through some kind of big life shift, or they hit their goals and realize those goals aren't as fulfilling as what they thought they were going to be, um, and want more, or expect that there should be more,
Or they weren't the right goal.
and more, exactly, or they set the
Maybe
wrong
they're
goals to begin with
pursuing what
because
their
they didn't
parents,
know what the purpose was.
yeah, maybe they were
Yeah,
pursuing what their parents
I
wanted,
I definitely
and they think
understand that one.
success. It's like, or bottom line is they're chasing somebody else's definition of success. Then they get it. They're like, this is not for me.
Yes,
Or you
I think
outgrow it.
that's definitely something that happens. Yes, we change as people, and then we want something different out of life than what we did when we were 20 or 25. um, and I think that's a great point.
Well, also too, the other thing I noticed is whenever somebody's going through this phase in life, high achievers are really bad at asking for help, because asking for help equates
Yes.
to failure in our mind.
Hmm.
And then we also, because a lot of us have this I can conquer it all attitude, because that's what made you successful in the first place. But the thing is,
Hmm.
that doesn't mean you can figure everything out. So like, I never asked for help. I went through all that myself, and it didn't occur to me to ask for help because I didn't think anybody would understand or could relate. So one, you feel very alone because of that. And so you
Yes.
also don't ask for help because you don't think anybody will understand or can relate. So then it's like kind of like a double whammy. But and again, that's
Yes.
part of the reason I coach is to kind of get the message out there that, yeah, hey, if you're feeling this way, you're not alone. It's actually quite
Hmm.
normal, and we can get you through it faster.
And that's a big help too, is the helping people realize you don't have to sit in that shit situation for 4 years. Change, it is about mindset, because you're right, it's that we know what sucks here, and people are willing to deal with it because they know it. So that prospect of change and that, well, that might suck too, or and being unwilling to make a big change because they don't know. We just don't know what's on the other side of it. And that big fear, that fear of failure, especially for people who, like you said, are high achievers and have hit goals, early in their life. They especially don't want to look like a failure or feel like a failure if they try something new and make some big pivot.
Yeah, because
But
that was a big one for me. This fear of, well, okay, if I leave, and then if I make the wrong decision, then I got to go back to that, or I got to, start from scratch. But here's the thing: all those fears, like, oh, what if I'm, I like being stagnant. That's a big one. No high achiever wants to be stagnant,
mm-hmm.
or starting over, leaving and starting over at the bottom. Well, that's all happened to me because I didn't know how to handle it. So here I was trying to
Yeah,
avoid that shit, and then I fell right in it because I
yeah.
didn't have the skills to navigate through that.
But like you said, learning which of your skills are transferable. You were looking for a change, and as someone who was successful in a specific field, it can feel like it's really intimidating to move into a completely different arena.
Yeah.
But talk a little bit about how that being a chef prepared you for what you do now, because transferable skills are something that's really important and that a lot of people don't understand how to identify.
I give a great question. I give this example, and here's the best way I describe it. So first of all, when you work your way up into a leadership skill, you're going to have transferable skills that apply to just pretty much anywhere. I'll give this example. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say you and I go into a kitchen. All right, we're going to cook a dish. It's going to be an advanced dish. Okay, and I'm going to use a cooking analogy because duh, I was a chef. So, and this will also,
And I'm lost already.
but while I explain this, I'll also show your viewers or listeners how I'm
Mm-hmm.
taking my transferable skills from one arena and putting them to a completely different arena. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to use the analogy of a recipe from being a chef and to what I'm doing now, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
show you how to take the whole how I take my chef background. So it works like this. I assume I don't have to explain to anybody the significance of recipes to a chef. So let's say you and I go into a kitchen. We're going to cook this exact same dish. It's going to be one of those fancy, advanced 5-star dishes with all the garniture and everything. We're going to get the exact same ingredients, exact same recipe procedure, and we're both going to get a photo of what the dish should look like. Do you think your dish is going to look and taste like mine? No,
Oh, absolutely not.
because you don't understand the psychology behind the steps in the process, right? So you won't know how to react if something goes wrong. This is also where having a coach helps, right? This is why when people are stuck in life or they're trying to, they're trying to make some changes, but they're not making much progress, or they end up back where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're reading
Mm-hmm.
books, or they're watching YouTube videos, or they buy some online course, and maybe they get some movement out of that, but they're not, because it's just them reading the steps or listening to the steps on a video.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand the psychology behind it. It's the same thing with
Yes.
you following a recipe, and why I said your dish won't be like mine. It doesn't matter how good of a recipe or a layout I give you, you don't understand the psychology behind the steps. So you won't be able to react if something goes wrong, or if the oven's not calibrated right, or whatever. And again, this is where the
Mm-hmm.
coach comes in. Right? So in when you coach people, it's all about following a framework. What's a recipe? It's a framework. What happens if you try to bake a cake and you don't follow the steps in order, or you leave an ingredient out? You're not getting a cake. You're getting some other thing. Same thing
Yeah.
with when you want to rediscover your purpose, or find a or find your why, right? Because when people come to this crossroads in life, it's because they've lost their purpose. So there's a certain process I use with my clients, and it's a framework. It's just like a recipe, which is actually why my one-on-one coaching program is called the recipe. because it's a framework. It's exactly like following a recipe. So that's how I take one example of how I take my transferable skills from having been a chef and use them into something completely unrelated. And then on top of that, there's my experience with, having been a manager and run businesses for a long time. So for example, if I'm going to coach somebody, well, I have to help them see the finish line, right? Because if you can't see the finish line, it's hard to get everybody on the same page, right? When I led teams of 200 or more, when I was an executive chef, overseeing multi-million-dollar operations, well, that's a lot of people. So you're not going to have success unless you can communicate a clear vision to the people you're leading, right? And on top of that, you have to be able to communicate clearly so they can understand. So those just a couple of examples of skills from my previous career that I used in coaching others. So the problem is a lot of people overlook, when they're and here I'll give you an example. When I work with my clients, there's one of the modules I take them through is helping them what they do is they take a look at all their skills, and they take a look at their core values and what's important to them. And so they have to write them down. And so often I find people don't dig enough, right? Yeah. And then so I start talking to them. Like, I'll give you an example. One of my clients was in the military. And so we were building her confidence. It's what's called build a confidence wall. And the way you do that is you start writing out what you're good at, what other people say you're good at, so they have to get feedback from people they trust and know. And you write down your skills. And she only put like a few things. So all I did was a quick Google on the spot. Skills acquired in the military and transferable skills acquired in the military. So then I said, okay, well, you said you used to be a marksman, right? She said, yeah. She's good with shooting. And I said, well, you're probably thinking like a lot of people of the skill of marksman shooting. But what are the underlying traits that are necessary to be a marksman, right? You've got to have patience, right? Because you can't just run in there and shoot. You've got to have a good aim. Precision, yeah. And then there's the ability to learn. Anyways, there's a number of things. I don't shoot, so I can't. But my point is that she wasn't really digging. And so I Googled, I said, okay, well, what about this? You learn this. Well, here's one. One of them was communication skills. And I said, I've never been in the military, but one thing I know for certain is they are pretty adamant about their standards. I said, how do you teach those standards? She's like, I said, well, communication, right? She said, yeah. I said, okay, well, isn't it fair to say communication is a strength of yours? She said, yeah. So anyways, my point is most of the time people just don't go digging deep enough.
No, they don't.
My job as a coach to pull it out of them.
To help them find and understand, and extrapolate from duties that they may have had in former jobs, how that can be a strength, and how that is a strength and something they've learned. That transfers, like you said.
Well, not only just with the transferable skills, but when I have them write down, just what are some of your attributes? What are some of your what do you love? Everything. People just don't dig enough, and that's
yeah.
And like I said, I had to learn all this shit the hard way.
I totally understand. Same thing here, and that's similar to something I use in my coaching as well as the values of it, and also just writing down things that are most important to you. What do you want out of the life you're looking to build? Is the most important thing to you that you get to spend time with your family, or is the most important thing to you that you have the means to travel, the flexibility to work from home, whatever it is. So similar to that, helping people figure out, what is it I'm looking for? What are that purpose, that forward vision, that end goal,
Mhm.
um, that finish line, like you said. So, yeah, that's really important. Um, and I can imagine as a chef too, the organization that it takes to run, the keeping track of everything that goes into, a restaurant and all of the
Oh yeah.
different, oh my gosh. And, the management of that size of, I mean, I've managed staffs before. Mine, I think the largest one I've had is more of the 35 to 50 range, but I can't imagine, 250 people, managing that size of staff is an enormous responsibility too. So the leadership expectations are incredibly um, high,
Yeah.
especially when you're putting out a high standard, a high quality of product.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
very, very similar because whether there's so many things that are similar, I guess you could say, you
Hmm.
know, that like one thing with coaching is building trust, right? Because somebody's not going to open
Yes.
up and let you coach them if they don't trust you. So, like
Hmm.
as a chef, one of the things I used to do is because when you have a big operation, I can't be everywhere, and I don't know what people are doing. So I'm not going to have a snitch in each kitchen or something like that. But what I used to do with the
Yeah.
chef of each kitchen is I said, okay, I'll make a deal with you, and this is how I got their trust. Took a little bit of time because they were kind of like, no. But I said, look, the best way for me to help you is to manage through you. So we'll meet once a week, and you tell me anything you did wrong, any mistakes, any challenges, and then the deal is, I mean, unless you do something really bad, you're not going to get in trouble. And so
Yeah.
because the operation is so big, you just can't be everywhere. So anyway, so after probably about a month, I noticed they started opening up more, and then they would say, yeah, I had a problem with this or this, and then I managed, I would say, okay, this is how you need to handle that next time.
Hmm.
So this is the exact same approach I use with coaching because it's no different. It's you're not there with them, right?
Yes.
And so they'll tell me what they're feeling and what their challenges are. I'll say,
Hmm.
and then well, I mean, actually, with a coach though, you don't want to just go give them the answer. But
No.
I'm
No.
also I'd say I'm more of a coach slash mentor because
Hmm. Yeah.
my program's 8 weeks, all right, and typically when people are at this phase in life, they kind of want to get moving. They don't want to dilly dally because they want to get
Hmm.
back to their old self. So yeah, depending on the circumstance, I may give the answer just for the sake of efficiency.
Sure.
You know,
But a
yeah,
lot of it is helping them learn to problem solve,
yeah,
um, and strategize and work through those things on their own, um, which is what a good leader does anyway. But especially as a coach, you're helping instill those skills in them, so that because the goal isn't that you're going to be hand holding them forever.
right,
It's to help them figure these things out and learn how to navigate the transition that they're going through, and or the you know uh, new job, or the new whatever it is that they're dealing with in their life.
yeah.
um, so what would you say would be, or can you pinpoint anything that you feel like led to you feeling like that chef position was just not it anymore? Was it something that was like, I don't know, in is there something specific that led you to feel that way, or was it just like a over time you just realized like
Yeah, I mean,
this isn't doing it anymore?
I had a great career. It wasn't like I was treated
Yeah.
unfairly or anything. I had a great career. Yeah, I was burned out. I don't. Well, but I used to think I left because I was burned out,
Hmm.
but then I thought about like, well, I don't know if that makes sense because when you recover from burnout, maybe this happens for some people, but to me, it doesn't make sense that so because I took some time off,
Sure.
and even now, 12 years later, I don't want to go back to a kitchen.
Yeah.
So because somebody suggested, well, maybe it's because you're burned out, and I know burnout can ruin a job, but generally speaking, at least from what I've seen, once you've recovered from that burnout, I mean, it usually doesn't like kill your career.
Yes.
So
That was my experience anyway. Yeah.
no, yeah, everybody's different, but for me, it just I don't know, it just I don't have a specific reason, and when I
Yeah.
talk to other people, I often find they don't know either. It's just that
It was just a
you got to a point, it's not
shift.
serving you anymore, you're not happy, and you need to make a change, and you don't know
Yeah.
why. You don't necessarily know what, but you just all you know is that okay, I'm not feeling the same as I used to.
hmm
And not like in my case, I fought it. I saw the signs, but I fought it. I
Yes.
was pissed off because I'm like, wait a minute, I invested 27 years in this shit. I'm not
Work too
walk
hard
away.
for this. Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
also, I've never been married, but I also know that's kind of the reason why some people stay in an unhappy marriage because
Yes.
they invested too much time in it. But that's, you're hurting
Yes.
yourself and your spouse. Yeah,
Absolutely.
just
And
like,
I think that's important for people to understand too, that it doesn't take a specific event. That was I guess that was kind of
yeah,
my reason for asking, because like it doesn't take a specific event. It doesn't take something going wrong necessarily, or something bad happening, or something like that. Not that not that things can't in your career, but it's it's a, like you said, a loss of purpose. It's a um
it
uh
all comes down to that. Whether you don't know what you want to
yeah.
do for your career, or whether you don't know what you want in life, or if a marriage ends, well, if a marriage ends, maybe you fall out of love, but at the end of the day, that your purpose for that
hmm
commitment, that agreement, that relationship
hmm
is gone. And
because something has
I know
changed. Yeah.
when people have been married, especially if it's been for some time,
Yeah.
it's common for them to experience the same things I went through. Your confidence goes out the window, your self worth, your self esteem.
Yes.
I've heard, like I have a friend of mine who, when he got divorced, he's like, man, I don't know, even want to see a fucking woman, you know. And
Yeah.
it wasn't that his wife was so bad. I mean, it wasn't the
Yeah.
way it ended wasn't great, but it wasn't like anything, like you see on the news, some
Catastrophic.
big
Yeah.
situation. But he was just like, Curt, I didn't. It wasn't that I hate women. It's just that after that experience, I just didn't want to see women. I didn't want to think about it. Blah
Yeah.
blah blah. But my point is,
Yeah.
what people go through when they leave a marriage or a long-term relationship is similar. That loss of
Yes.
yourself. There's doubts. There's probably anger. There's frustration. There's
Yes.
probably a bit of like, fuck you, universe, that this wasn't part of the
Yeah.
plan, right? Just like,
There is. And there's
uh,
some shame, and there's some like, why is this happening? Like, what did I do?
yeah,
Did I, what because I've experienced both, went through a divorce after 20 years, but then, and then I've also been through a career shift, you know, point. So in both, there's that, like, you're right, they're very similar. It's like you know, I've changed as a person. Um, purpose, my purpose has shifted in life, all of those kind of things. And it's like, but why? Everything should be fine. Everything should be okay.
yeah. We don't accept
And
that
it's
things
not.
change.
Yeah, I think that's hard, without to accept that without some reason, some big event, that things can still make a pretty big shift,
Yeah,
and that we have to um, be able to shift too.
yeah,
But that we need help shifting, like you said, and it can be hard to ask for that or find that,
yeah,
if we don't know what we're looking for.
yeah,
And I think that's where um, where you're finding or creating a good space for people who don't necessarily know what their next step is, or um, what has happened. No,
yeah.
because there's a lot of people out there that, like, they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I'm feeling or why I'm feeling it. And so they're not seeking like, well, I know I need this coach, or I know I need, this type of thing. And so I think the questions you're asking and what you're putting out there for, those people that are kind of wandering in the unknown, is really important.
Yeah, yeah. Valid. Yeah. Because people need help.
So, yeah, absolutely. And I think that unknown is is a hard place to spend a long time. And the longer you're there, the harder it can be on your confidence, on your ability to move forward. You can really get stuck there. So where can people find out more about you and your courses and what you're doing?
LinkedIn. That's where I spend most of my time. I don't have a YouTube channel as of yet. I have a site that I'm kind of rebuilding, and which is
Okay.
curtsassak.net. But it's actually up and running, but I have to tweak it because some of the verbiage doesn't quite reflect. But that's me. So, but yeah, LinkedIn is the best place. So you can send me a DM or
Okay.
check out my content.
Awesome. I'll put your website and your LinkedIn and the notes for the podcast. But yeah, so if anybody is interested in reaching out to Curt regarding like purpose and transitions in life, being stuck, being you know just at a loss for where you are, I think Curt could be a big help. Yeah. What other, is there any last message, final message you would have for anybody who might be struggling with something like this?
Well, if you're struggling to, generally speaking, if you're struggling to make a change, so if you want to make a change and you either can't, or you maybe you see some progress, but you end up back where you were, and if you're like, wow, I want to make a change, but you feel like something's holding you back, you don't know what it is. Well, that's limiting beliefs actually, but
Mm.
at the end of the day, that's where a coach can help, because you can't often see these things. Like I couldn't, which is why it took me why I was stuck for 4 years. So
Mm-hmm.
this is where, and I don't mean to sound salesy, but at the end of the day, the whole purpose of hiring a coach is to get you from point A to point B faster, right?
Yeah.
And to save yourself the headache and the frustration, the trial and error, and 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 just make life easier on yourself. And
Yeah.
because if you want to make a change, whether it be, you want to leave a marriage, leave a career, make some big change in your life, what got you, all the steps you've taken and all the success you've had to get you where you are today will not get you to where you need to be in the future, because
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to go somewhere else, wherever that may be,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to use a different mindset.
Yeah.
And this is where most people can't see for themselves this shift that needs to happen to get to that new place, because you have to adopt a different mindset, you know.
Yeah.
And but too many people try to figure out things on their own, or
Yeah.
they let their ego get in the way. And then the question I would ask to anybody listening is this: ask, if you're not making progress in some area of your life, and it's been going on for a little while, more than, say a month. First of all, if you think what you're feeling is a phase and it'll go away, it's not, and it won't. Secondly, if you've tried resolving it and you're not seeing a difference, or you're seeing minimal difference, or you end up back where you started, well,
Mm-hmm.
what makes you think repeating the same actions is going to yield a different result? And
Yeah.
remember, at the end of the day, you're making an investment in yourself. You're either making an investment to progress and better your life, whether it be you hire a coach, or you hire a therapist, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or you're investing in your really demise, not to be so you know catastrophizing,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
because if you need to make a change, you're making an investment one way or the other, either to better yourself in your future, or to remain where you are. And a lot of people don't think about the costs down the road, as far as what can happen if they don't make a change.
Yeah.
And then I'll just leave with this quote: "Do you want the discomfort of growth, or do you want the discomfort of staying where you are?"
Yeah. And I can say that discomfort of staying where you are turns into not just discomfort; it eventually, turns into pain.
A lot more,
You
yeah.
know. So yeah, I think that's a great quote. And I really appreciate you being on today. I think that's a
Thank you
lot
for
of
having
great
me.
information. Absolutely. So I'm going to have Curt's contact information in the notes for this. And yeah, I just think that a lot of people can benefit from, just knowing that you're not alone. If you're feeling like you need to make a change in your life, and that you've hit some kind of weird transition point that you're just not sure how to move forward with, then, reach out. There's other people out there that are feeling the same way, and there's help. So thank you for being here, Curt.
Thank you.
Again, I'm Desiree Parker, and this has been Empower Together. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.